Good evening. It's now 7 o'clock. We're going to start the meeting for the deliberative session for Hampstead for the school. And I'm going to ask that someone lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I see you up there front, Joe Guthrie, one of our state representatives. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, I say welcome all to the meeting here, deliberative session. And this is the first meeting before we actually vote, which is on March 8th. So I want to just read some of this verbiage off the warrant article itself. The first session of annual meeting, deliberative session, that's where we are now. You're hereby notified to meet in the Hampstead Middle School, 28 School Street, Hampstead, New Hampshire, on Tuesday, the 8th of February, which is today, at 7 p.m. The session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of warrant articles numbers 2 through 6. Warrant articles may be amended, subject to the following limitations. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law cannot be amended, and I'll let you know as we go along what those are. And warrant articles that are amended should be placed on the official ballot for a final vote in the main motion as amended. No warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article, although you can change the intent of it sometimes as long as the subject matter is still there. Amendment that changes the dollar value of appropriation in a warrant article does not violate this provision. And before I start, I would just like to go through the rules, and I'm going to introduce some of the people that are here. Let me go with the people that are right in front of me here. To my right, I have David Smith. He's our chairman of the school board. Megan Malcolm, vice chairman. Jason Gorard. Giard, I'm sorry, Jason, you told me before the meeting. And Caitlin Parnell. And Erin Pellegrini. Okay, these are all people on the school board. We also have here tonight Robert Thompson, our superintendent. And we have Jeff Dow, our business administrator. And we also have Allison Minuttelli. Minuttelli, okay. I'm sorry, Allison. Okay. Myself, Neil Reed, moderator. And to my left, we have Lisa DeMio. She's our clerk. And we have Laura Jones, treasurer. Where's Laura? She might not be here. Okay. So there's a bunch of people here that may be speaking but are not registered voters in Hampstead. The law says that if you're going to speak at the meeting, you have to be a registered voter unless we say otherwise. So there's a bunch of people in that row down there, and I hope I get them all right here, who are school administrators and who have information for us, and we want them to speak even though they're not from the town and not registered voters. So I'm going to suggest that Francine Flynn, down there, okay. Jeff Dowd, I've already announced his name. He lives in Hampstead. Jeff Mackey. Lynn Joseph. Okay, Nicole Tomaselli. Okay, and Peter Schmidt. Okay, and Terrelyn Cheney. I get everybody. And Tracy Griffin Hagen. I think I pronounced everybody's name correctly, I hope. And I guess we have a couple of people from that might talk from the bond article, and we have an architect, these two gentlemen up here. What happens when we go to speak, I'm going to ask anybody that wants to talk be recognized by me and say what their name is and where they live in town or what the function is today. I'm just going to go over the rules quickly, and then I want to introduce the chairman of the school board because he's going to talk about the SAU. I'm looking for my rules here. I did these rules a few years ago, and Jeff was graciously nice to put these online. Thank you for the town. It's just a series of rules. We're not going to follow Robert's Rules of Orders. We're going to do moderator's Rules of Orders. And I don't know if people know that Robert's Rules of Orders is about 700 pages long. We're not doing that. And the moderator will take articles as they appear in the warrant. We'll not sequence. We'll announce the article as it goes along, and anybody who wants to be recognized, I'm going to ask them to look toward me and be recognized first. And everybody who speaks will use a microphone, no one just, just from the floor. If we have amendments, we'll do them one at a time. I have some rules on that, and amendment can be voted upon by majority rules. This became controversial in other meetings, that amendments, you can amend articles that are amendable, but you can change it, but you cannot take the subject matter away from the voters for the March 8th ballot. What we're basically doing tonight is preparing the ballot, is what we're doing. Let me see what else. The only thing, other thing of major importance in here, I think, is we don't have a lot of people here tonight, but sometimes we have a lot more. Every speaker may only speak once until everybody else has spoken. If we need a secret ballot, I'll let you, we can get into that if that happens. And I would ask everybody here to be thoughtful, respectful, and wise. And at the end, I'm going to ask for a motion to recess the secret ballot. Before I go further, I want to recognize David. You ready to do this, David? Yep. David's going to give us an overview on the SAU. Is that correct, David?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so.
David is the chairman of the school board.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to we had a little over a dozen members of the community here, so thank you for attending. Just really quickly here, just to give everybody an overview of our district profile of SAU 55. I think I speak on behalf of the board that we are lucky enough and very happy to say that we are a single district SAU for the first time, and so I want to recognize that, and that we are located in Hampstead. This does include what you'll hear tonight is about 2 schools, our central school and our middle school. And currently there are just over about 819 students in grades pre-K through 8th grade. There are another 392 students that are attending Pinkerton that we pay through tuition, which is part of our operating budget. And then, as everybody knows, Pinkerton Academy is a public academy and is a designated school for record of our high school students for Hampstead residents. And that's all for SAU 55. Neil?
Okay. And everybody knows, everybody should know, that this is the first meeting, deliberative session. The second meeting is going to be on March 8th, and that's going to be here again, and that's for the voting on a secret ballot. I'm going to get right into the articles on the warrant right now. Article 1, election of officers. This is prescribed by law, so we can't do anything about this. So who's ever on the ballot, I'm not sure who it is, there's 2 openings for school board, one for a 1-year term, one for 3-year terms. So I'm going to suggest that Article 1 is hereby forwarded to the March 8th ballot. Article 2, now this is the bond issue. Let me read this. And bond issue, Hampstead Central School Addition Project. And the article says, shall the voters of the Hampstead School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,500,000 for Hampstead Central School Addition Project and authorize issuance of not more than $12,595,000 of bonds or notes under the compliance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, to authorize the school board to issue, negotiate, sell, deliver such bonds or notes, to determine the rate of interest thereon and the majority and other items thereof, to authorize the school board to apply for, obtain, accept, and expend any federal, state, or other aid that may be available for the said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, and to authorize the school board to take any and all action necessary in connection therewith, or to pass any other vote relative thereto, and further to raise and appropriate an additional sum of $314,875 for the first year's interest payment of the bond. And it looks like the school board has recommended this 4-0. And I'd like to, will someone move the article forward so we can discuss it? Someone move it?
Motion.
Okay, David moves it, Lisa, and is second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, and Caitlin seconds. Now we need someone to speak to, I know you guys got a presentation, I want to make sure it goes smoothly for you. So is someone going to speak to this article now?
Yes, Mr. Thompson will start the
Okay.
discussion.
The moderator recognizes the superintendent of schools, Bob Thompson, to speak to Article 2.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, this year, the Hampstead School District presents to the Hampstead taxpayers and voters a bond proposal for an addition to the Hampstead Central School. This is a much-needed bond for an addition that will address several deficiencies in the current school. So I'd just like to highlight a few of these. And again, for any taxpayer or voter who has been in the district for any amount of time, none of these issues are new. So first, we have some security issues at the school, particularly around the visitor entrance. Presently, if you are to visit the central school, You need to actually be buzzed in through several doors and actually go through the main building in order to either access the nurse's office or the main office. A best practice in emergency management and safety would have a main entrance that someone from the office could view the parking lot, and they would also be the first point of contact for anyone who's trying to enter the building. Presently, that's not the case. Also, our music room. Our music room is on a stage right now. It's located right next to the cafeteria. It's very problematic because when music instruction is occurring, we also have PE classes or gymnasium or cafeteria students. And it's very difficult to maintain instruction in that space because the wall is a collapsible wall and sound gets to it pretty easily. Additionally, we have limited gymnasium space. So essentially, the master schedule is really driven by the use of gymnasium space in the time for lunches. There's also a lot of breakdown that needs to occur. So in the morning, we'd have a PE class, and in the afternoon, we would have to break down the PE class so that we can set up for lunch. This is a time-consuming process, and this is time that our custodians could be utilized to do other things. We also have some concerns about the lack of space and privacy in the nurse's office. That we're not able to social distance in the nurse's office. It's one small office area. The bathroom in that space is not ADA compliant. Also have some concerns that the nurse who deals in a tremendous amount of confidential information has a very difficult time speaking with parents or staff members when there are students that are only a few feet away. We also have a lack of appropriate numbers of bathrooms in the building. Approximately 2/3 of the student body uses one gang bathroom that's located on the second floor. This is problematic because, after lunch, students tend to use the bathroom more, and it really can cause an interruption to instruction or take time out of the instructional day because of just the one bathroom. Also, in the 60s wing, there is a stairwell that we have some concerns about. It is a very narrow staircase. With today's code, it would not be up to code. For example, if there was ever a fire in the building, if the fire department were trying to access that stairwell to go up, any individuals on the second floor would not be able to go down that stairwell, and that obviously is a significant safety concern to us. A number of these issues also have some impact on our ability to deliver instruction. This is a situation where the current building, the deficiencies in the current building are impacting instruction to students. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of them very quickly. First of all, our library media center is not a library media center. It is a 900 square foot classroom that is used to house books. There's no technology in this room. There's no 3D printers. There is not adequate space for student seating, so there's no collaboration. We don't have the ability to have an entire class access that space at one time. So students are often filtered through, which makes it really difficult for our librarian and her staff to be able to provide any type of literacy or library media instruction. Additionally, we have a technology class that is currently on a cart. It's very problematic because the teacher goes into the classroom and she has to set up the computers, turn them on, and get kids online. And so what would typically be a 40-minute instructional period, by the time we're done with setup and breakdown, it's really about 25 minutes of computer instruction. Also, we have very limited space for kindergarten expansion. Hampstead is one of the few districts that does not have a universal kindergarten. Currently, we have a pay model so that any parent that wants their child to participate in kindergarten, they do have to pay for that. And that really is due in part to the limitations of space. We simply don't have enough classrooms to be able to provide that universal kindergarten. This is obviously an issue because we know how important kindergarten is and building that early intervention to make sure that all students are at grade level. And then one that is really important to us is we have a lack of limited space for special education. This becomes very problematic when we have students that we identify as having very unique needs. It is difficult to program for these students, and what ends up happening is we often will have to place these students out of district. And really, one of our core missions is that if you live in this community to the greatest extent possible, we want you educated in this community. And the current facility that we have does not always allow that to happen. And so next, looking at the Trident project management, this would be an opportunity to just introduce Gino Baroni. He's the owner and managing principal. So again, we are required by law with a project of this size to have a project manager. That project manager acts as the district's agent and consultant for scheduling, contracting, bidding, negotiating, and overseeing the total project. They manage the outcome to completion. They're client-driven, and they act as the district's best interest. And they have 30 years of experience with school projects. And I've had the pleasure this year, as we work through the renovation project, to work very closely with Gino and his staff. And they're they're top-notch, they're professional. This is their bread and butter. It is renovating and adding, doing building additions and new construction. And it's been a tremendous partnership with the school. And at this point, I will turn it over to Chairman Smith, who will talk about the details of the project.
Moderator recognizes David Smith to speak to Article 2, the bond issue.
All right. First, before we get into this, just a couple things of that. This presentation is available online for anybody at home, and who watches the recording. If you go to the Hampstead School District, you can get there by looking on the page to click on the school district warrant and budget, and then the deliberative slides are there. So everything you're seeing, everything we're speaking to is already available to the public. Happy to download it and share it amongst your friends. It is available for everybody. Second, I just want to echo what Superintendent Bob Thompson spoke to, that Trident and BPS have been quite the professionals this past year with taking care of any issues, being there as a liaison to the work that needed to be done. And overall, as anybody would care, they've been able to deliver ahead of schedule and under budget to the tune of about 8% of that money coming back to Hampstead, to our school. And anyone knows this challenging time with supply chain issues, with escalation cost, and we're still able to provide that value to the Hampstead residents. We really appreciate this and why we're partnering going forward, as Mr. Thompson has spoken to. So we try to keep it brief, but we want to make sure that we're able to describe as much as possible and offer up, if any questions from the community members, we'll be able to answer. So we're going to go over why do we need to do this addition, what is the conceptual design, and then talk about what are those numbers and what does that mean to the residents of Hampstead. So we'll go to the next slide. So again, this echoes what Mr. Thompson has talked to, that the reason for doing this is we do have space deficiencies for our current students, our forecasted number of students in the future, for both our traditional students as well as those that seek that the special education in student services. We do have this safety and security issues that we're looking to overcome. We're excited that when this passes, that it would be able to have a main entrance that is right there with the office, as well as correct some of this stairwell issues, provide fire sprinklers throughout the entire school. That goes into the code upgrades, and just overall building efficiencies, bathrooms, classrooms, where the classrooms are organized, how we can take care of our master plan with proper gymnasium, proper cafeteria, and provide the the educational spaces that we're looking for in a music room, a library, etc. So we go to the next slide. All right. So again, what we're looking to do, the space deficiencies, is that we'll have 5 classrooms per grade. So right now we have on average 4 classrooms per grade, and as our enrollment is going to that 110 students in the future per grade, putting them in 4 classrooms is really tough to do. That's 25 plus kids per classroom that we'll be forced to do, or we're going to have to change how we outlay other programs that we offer the children. We've already had to do that with the technology on the cart. There's other classes that in curriculum we'd have to move to being on a cart. We're going to right size it with adequate features. So some of the classrooms we have are rather small at 900 square feet, where we can't give a proper classroom size there due to state regulations. So we'll be able to correct that, as well as with the proper classrooms, we'll be able to cluster children's grades together and teachers together. Just this weekend, we were at the school and seeing that there's a kindergarten class that's in the front entrance of the school, and the other kindergarten classes in another side of the school. This will allow us to co-locate all the grades together. Again, this will meet the standard education standards of students that will, allow 15 students in our preschool together, 18 students per room in our kindergarten, as well as state regulations for grades 1 through 4 with 20 to 23 students in the classrooms, which we're not always able to accomplish at this point. We'll go to the next one. Again, continuing with space deficiencies. Special education, again, as Mr. Thompson has said, it is our moral obligation, as well as there is a financial impact, to ensure that we have students with special education educated here in the town versus having to send them to other districts, which is, again, against moral background, and also it is a financial impact to send them out of district. Again, this allows us to adapt to the unique needs of today's student population and education system. When we talk about technology, we talk about all the industrial arts, we want to give those proper spaces versus using smaller classrooms, closets, et cetera, to educate our students. And again, better spaces mean we can serve more children, provide them the education space and environment that we want to provide in this town. Next slide on the, again, gymnasium. If you've been there for half of the day, gymnasium is cut in half, partly for physical education, the other part for cafeteria. And at all times in the cafeteria, there are tables that are against the wall. So when kids are playing basketball, we always have to be cognizant that the kids aren't running and bumping into those tables that can, cause injury. So this will allow us to have a separated cafeteria and a dedicated gymnasium. The cafeteria could also then be used for community events and social gatherings of sorts for the students, being able to properly use those spaces as a gymnasium versus a cafeteria. Continuing on the next slide for more space deficiencies. Again, integrated art school, we are, I'd say in this town, we have invested a lot in our unified arts and our theater and music, et cetera. This allows us to continue that without giving up more than what we already have or may have to in the future. Like we said, a dedicated music room, continue to have our dedicated art room. We would be able to bring technology back into its own classroom versus technology on a cart. The library, anybody who's seen the pictures, it is a room with books. There's nothing there for students to sit and learn from librarians, learn from teachers, have personalized learning as they had traditionally in the past. As well as we are looking with this addition to have outdoor learning space as part of the plans, and we would expand in the future, but not as part of this bond, but we'd be able to expand in the future to allow for more outdoor learning space for the students. Let's see, next slide, we'll go to space again. There will be site improvements, so it's not only the learning spaces that are up for the needs of our school district and of Central School. It's also, we have leach fields that are over 40 years old. They're pushing 45 years, and they are going to be end of life soon, so we're going to have to replace those anyways. The drop-off loop, we will reorganize a bit so that it's a little bit easier for the students, and we can utilize the full space versus what we have right now. And again, some of the outdoor learning areas you'll see in a moment that we'll point out in some of the diagrams. Next slide. Safety, security. Again, secure access to all points. As you can see on this picture, all those areas are areas that we do have doors. So this will allow for a closed loop system of a school and a proper way to have security for students, teachers to be coming in and monitoring anybody from the public to come into the building as well. Proper access control, both exterior and interior. Next slide. No, thank you. Again, safety and security. We'll have, like we said, controlled access at the front entry. Again, we'll go over that in a moment, a little bit more detail. That access control, and then as Mr. Thompson has mentioned, right now in our current layout, parents enter in through one door that they get buzzed and there's a camera, and it's not for another 75 feet or whatever, close to that, there's actually somebody from the office that is welcoming that person in public, and we have to shut down a lot of the hallways and really monitor much more than we would if we had a secure entryway, the students going up and down stairwells to the gymnasium, to the bathroom, to ensure that we do not have anybody from the public interacting with the students that we don't know about. So this will allow us better security for that main entrance. Go to the next. Thank you. Again, some of the building code requirements that we've talked to, again, there's the non-compliant railings in the 40s and the 80s wing, that this will change out those stairwells to allow for a better use of traffic flow. There'll be more restrooms based on what's going to be for the gymnasium and the upper level. If you go into the central school, you'll realize that they have really small bathrooms that take care of over half the population on the second floor, and bathrooms down by the gymnasium that are harder to get to and have to be more closely monitored by teachers because of this, the secure entryway that is going to be restored. Again, more drinking fountains will be a part of the plan. That's we don't have enough right now, as well as there's no fire sprinklers installed at HCS in the main areas that this plan will provide to cover, that we've been looking forward to. More building code requirements. We do have structural repairs. We have hallways with that are not fire and smoke proofed. Again, classroom doors that have automatic closers and ratings. So again, more building code requirements that we'll be able to adhere to in the future that we're not right now. Even more on the building system efficiency, we will be planning on doing roof replacement. For those that haven't seen, we do have some roof leaks right now at Central School that we're taking care of, but this will allow us to replace the entire set so we don't have those leaks. We will be removing all the portables that were installed back in the 90s. We will also have a better heating and ventilation. Anybody that's visited the 60s wing has seen how well it is ventilated now for the students and the teachers. We will provide that for the rest of the school with this addition as well. All right. So a little bit long. All right. So how do we get to this point? How do we get for anybody that does not, for anybody that does here know the history? The many years we've been looking to get this passed. We've done a lot of different studies, partnering with the team of Trident, BPS, Superintendent's Office, SAU, teachers, community members, to go through studies, do facilities assessments. Again, there's been a number of community outreach programs. There's been steering committees, and the conceptual designs have been reviewed many times over to ensure, are we providing the best solution for our students? And so let me now go into the conceptual design here a little bit more. I'm going to skip a couple slides right here. So this is really about repair, renovate, and renew. That's really what we're looking to do. Repair what's there with the deficiencies and code implications, renovate the existing building areas, and then renew by adding new spaces to meet the education and community needs. And we'll go over those here in just a moment. All right. So what you see here on this rendering is, you'll see on the bottom side is the 80s wing that we know of. Off to the right-hand side is the 40s wing that was rebuilt after a fire back in the 40s. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt, who provided that overview and some great history. And then we've got the 1960s wing, which was what we renovated last year to provide proper insulation, new HVAC system, and other great upgrades. So it'll be important just to think about where we're at here, because in the following drawings, they're a little bit more sketch art. So we'll go to the next slide. All right, so what you see here is some of the improvement areas that we've talked about. I'm going to start on the top right, the leach fields. Right now, the leach fields are pretty much underneath our trailers. We would be moving those leach fields, and those would be tucked a little bit further to the right of the property, out of the way, and not having to worry about, are we going to build something on top of those, like we right now have trailers built on top of them. You can see the drop-off loop changes a little bit, that we don't bring cars into the schoolyard area in the future. That becomes, and you'll see on our next slide, a little bit of an outdoor learning area for students. And you can see that traffic way will now go down to the front of the school with the tag that's on the bottom right-hand side that says drop-off entrance. We're now going to utilize that entrance that is a very beautiful 40s wing entrance for students. We'll also have the ADA drop-off main entrance area that's on the bottom left, and that's where the elevator is, that for any students that need to be dropped off, they'll be able to be dropped off there, that need that the elevator entrance, but parents will be doing the pickups, and you'll see in a bit the nurse's office is close to that main entrance in the future with this addition. All right, so next slide. All right, so what you see here in white is any place that we're going to remodel and renovate. So I'm not going to go through all of the areas. I think a lot of people have seen this, but I'm going to point out some important areas that we've been speaking to a couple times so that you can get an understanding of the impact to students and teachers and staff. I'm starting on the left-hand side. You see the big white area. That's their gymnasium. In the future, that will no longer have a divider in the middle that separates the lunch cafeteria area for 3 to 4 hours out of the day from the gymnasium, which would then be a full 6 to 7 hours a day versus a 3-hour gymnasium for students. As you come across in the bottom, we'll swing all the way to the bottom right, is where the nurse's station is currently. So if you think about on the bottom left is where our main entrance is today, we're going to take that nurse's office and put that right near the entrance. So when parents come to see their students or their children to pick them up and bring them home, they don't have to walk all the way down to the end of the hallway to the opposite side of the building. They'll pick them up right at the entrance, just feet away from the main door, which you would want the students who are sick to not be walking throughout the school building. You'd want them as close as possible to leaving the building, and that's what this will provide right there. Up along the top area, on the top left, is where we have our new cafeteria. Again, this is a dedicated cafeteria that can be used for more than just a cafeteria in the evenings, can be used for a number of assemblies or anything needed in the community. We've talked about having community functions there. And as we round that corner in blue, you see those are the new bathrooms. Again, adequate bathrooms for anything we need for students that are at the cafeteria, or right next to that in the yellow, the music room, that we would move from that small stage that's off of the gymnasium to its own dedicated area where the kids playing the flute and the trumpet don't have to disturb everybody else. Now, right next to that in the top right in yellow is where our new library would be. And by moving our library, which we would then have a dedicated library with books, seats, and other educational spaces, it provides that the existing space would be turned into classrooms. So that's what, by having that library there, we get additional classrooms to be utilized by the students. And then lastly, as we turn the corner in on the right-hand side in the middle, there is what's referred to sometimes as the pocket area, where we'll be having 2 classrooms, one on the first floor, one on the second floor. But this is where we found additional space to provide the classrooms for the future to help with the expansion and the needs of growing population in a few years. So we'll go next slide, thank you. Again, here we're going to start on the top right. On top of the library that we've talked about, that'd be the new library, there'd be also 2 classrooms above that library. So that's where we get 2 more classrooms there. And again, turning the corner, going down the right-hand side, and that green is that second floor classroom I just spoke about that is in that pocket area that we'll utilize. In blue, right across from that, is the new bathrooms. So as we've talked about before, we have 2 undersized bathrooms on the second floor currently, and this will provide essentially 4 bathrooms, 2 boys, 2 girls bathrooms, and be able to service more than half of the population that is on that second floor all day long. I want to point out what you see in that pink fuchsia kind of salmon color. That right there is right next to 3, it's a total of 3 rooms that we've been using as classrooms that are very undersized for our traditional classrooms. By having this addition with classrooms, we'll be able to use those rooms for areas of learning like our Ventures program, where we provide extra learning for those students that are excelling. And that'll be a dedicated room for those students, where right now they share it with our technology teacher. We'll also be able to provide additional space for our student services and special education that we currently right now do utilize much smaller rooms than what are right there and are sometimes referred to as the closets. And then curving down on the bottom side, what you see is that is the old library in green that we will now have as serving 2 classrooms. Right there today, right now, we're already utilizing half of that library. So on the left-hand side is already a classroom that we've taken away from the library, and on the right side is the existing library that we would turn into a classroom. And then coming up in the left-hand side there, there's an area of storage that will allow us to house some of the gym equipment that kids use during physical education. Right now, if you go into the gymnasium, all that equipment is usually lined on the outside of the walls. So our storage area for our gymnasium is typically lined in the room, and it's not proper and good for the kids that they might trip over it, fall into it, et cetera. This allows for that proper storage, and other areas will be storing equipment and other such needs in that area on the second floor. All right. So this is just, if you remember that first picture we looked at, kind of showed like what's today. Here's our future land with, when the warrant article passes, what we're able to do is gives a rendering of that. It shows up on the top area going left to right. You see where the cafeteria is next to the music room and is next to the library. And then coming down, our 60s wing that we know today will be retrofitted with an additional classrooms, as well as there will be an outdoor learning space right over there on the right-hand side for students to get out of the classroom and do, if it's community needs, it's, you know, we have more space outside that's proper for the students to utilize with the staff in their education direction. Coming down on the bottom here, you'll see again that main entry. It bumps out from our current entrance. That's where we'll house the principal's office, administration, et cetera, and again, that entryway that is secure for parents, students, and others from the public. And lastly, in the middle, we haven't talked too much yet, but we are looking to put a courtyard there. It'll be a very basic courtyard at first. We've decided that we are not looking to utilize bond payments for that. We'll look to advance and make that better in the future with our operating budget, and probably invite the community for their help on creating an outdoor learning space for students. So just a note there that we aren't doing a lot of, I'd say, fanciness there. It'll be very basic at first, but it'll be something we'll look to retrofit later on under the guide of the superintendent's office. All right, so next slide. Okay, so now this is just showing you what that entrance will look like. So this is the main entrance. So anybody who can think in their mind what the main entrance looks like today, this will be what it'll look like in the future with that entryway that brings you into the principal's office and administration wing for students, public, et cetera. All right, next one. This is now looking, if you're in the playground, so think about orienting everybody. If you're in the playground looking at the school, this is what that will look like. From right to left, you'll be looking at the cafeteria. You'll be looking at the music room and restroom. And then to the left is where the library would be on the bottom floor and the two classrooms on the second floor. So this is if you're at the playground, you're looking towards St. Anne's. This is what you'd be seeing from the back of the school. All right, we'll go to the next. All right, and so this is the car drop-off. So this is looking off from the side, the 60s wing that we just renovated. This is what it will look like. There'll be an entryway right there next to that library and those two classrooms. And then over to the far left, you see those, what we were calling the pocket area. That's where those two classrooms are on the first floor, second floor, that infill classrooms. So that right there is where we get 4 classrooms all together with this addition on this area. All right. Okay. And again, just to summarize, what these improvements do provide are a long-term solution. We have looked at enrollment numbers for the future, and we do believe this is going to take care of us for the future. What's being done here is to look at not only here today, tomorrow, next year, but look out that 10 years based on our NASDAQ forecast that has continued to show that we will be growing in population in the years to come. Again, this provides that safety and security of the main entrance, as well as that drop-off and pickup area, makes that more suitable for students and parents. Provides us that energy efficiency achieved. Again, with rising costs with energy, this will help to reduce those costs for us as taxpayers by having an energy efficient area in really school building for us. Adds classroom, adds restrooms, cafeteria, the library, the music room for the school and community use. It definitely opens us up for more possibilities to have more of that community feel again that we so miss. And we, again, right-sized clustered classrooms. Again, right now we have smaller classrooms. They're not clustered. This provides us to put those 4th graders with all the 4th graders, kindergartners with the kindergartners, and not spread them throughout the building, and right-sizes the rooms so we have that proper spacing. And then lastly, of course, code-compliant fire suppression throughout the entire school building. All right, so now we get to the numbers. All right, so again, by working with Trident, in working with BPS, we've been able to come up with these costs for this year, and I'll go through these pretty quickly, but the hard costs are $10.8 million. We do have soft cost for fees, technology commissioning, et cetera, of $1.2 million, and then we do have project contingency for the unknown, things that might happen that we want to make sure we have ourselves covered for another $500,000, bringing us to $12.595 million. And I do want to, again, two things, applaud both what we've done for the renovation for the 60s wing by delivering this under budget and on or ahead of schedule, as well as throughout the last 6 months, having our new superintendent, Bob Thompson, working with Jeffrey Dowd and with VPS and Trident to bring those numbers down. So there have been things that we've looked at the design and taken out to provide a proper warrant for the community to vote on. So definitely appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. Next slide. Okay, just to give a summary of what all this does for us. So sometimes people ask, well, how much of this is classroom versus other? So for this new and remodeled area, we do have 45% of it is for learning environment, is what it pays for. We have 21% of the funds that will take care of our remodel and code deficiencies. 14% will take care of site and infrastructure. We do have 8% for academic support. And then lastly, safety and security is about 12% of that overall warrant request. And then we'll go to the next slide, and we are wrapping it up. Tax impact. So what does this mean for each individual community member? So what we have laid down here is what is the impact for a $200,000 home versus a $400,000 home versus a $600,000 home? We stick with the 400 home. So overall, for a $400,000 home, the monthly impact on average is just under $34 per month. Or an easy way to think about this is for every $100,000 your home is worth, it's $100 more in taxes per year. So for a $400,000 home, this is going to be $400 per year. If you're a $200,000 home, it's $200 per year. So that's the overall impact per year for that 10 years. This does not take into account anything as when and if this gets approved, that we can go after grants, we can go after other ways to pay some of this down by, partnering with Eversource, by other ways to look for additional grants that may help us here, as well as there is school funding available at the state level that for building improvements, which once approved, we'll be able to go after those to get into that, go after that money that has been allocated for schools in their renovation addition plans. So there is the possibility to bring that down even more for the community members. And we will be working very hard to do that as we have in the past. And unless I've missed anything from anybody here, that closes our discussion on the warrant article for the Central School Edition. Mr. Reardon.
Anybody else going to speak to the bond issue? Anybody from the school board, or you want the architects to talk or anything?
No, I think we decided we're going to keep it just Mr. Thompson and myself.
Okay.
So, thank you.
So this is an article we can't modify. We can only debate and discuss it because it's prescribed by law, and the bond has already been negotiated. Does anybody else want to speak to the bond issue? Article 2. Joe Guthrie, you're recognized to speak. Joe, State Representative and Selectman. Long-time Selectman.
Long time, and longer, hopefully. Thanks for the introduction. I've been involved in these things for quite a while time. Back in the 60s, that's 1960s, I was on a school committee in another town, and we went through this, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I can't say that strong enough because I know what it takes to do what you're doing. But, in all the other presentations, we have charts, and we talk about population growth and the need for, we're going to have 100 new kids. And you never made that pitch at all. And I'm assuming that the reason you didn't make that pitch is because we're not talking about the future, we're talking about today. I've walked through these schools last year and the year before when we had future presentations, and the need was there then. And I assume, and I hope I'm right, that you're making a presentation because we're in a situation that exists now. It's nothing that's going to impact on our future. It's going to impact on what we have to contend with now. And that's a serious problem. I mean, you can always put it off if you can always look at the numbers, you can fool around with them, and you can take a positive or negative approach about that pitch. But from what I can see and what I saw when I went through this school 2 years ago, the need was there. As I said, I want to commend you for the work that you've done. I look at this as a investment in your homes. I think the chairman just said that what's it going to cost you to pay for this? If you had a serious problem in your home, would you be willing to spend that kind of money? And it's not easy for a lot of us. For some of us, it's not hard at all, but for some of us, whether we have children in school or not, this is an investment. It's the reason that people come to Hampstead. It's the reason for people who would like to live in Hampstead and are not able to. The values of your homes are where they are because we have a good school system in spite of this. And I suggest to you that this is a good investment, and I support the project, and I hope that you vote in favor of the warrant.
Does anybody else want to be recognized to speak to Article 2, the bond issue on the central school?
I would just like to say thank you to Mr. Guthrie for speaking up and appreciate your words of encouragement.
Anybody else want to speak to the bond issue, Hampstead Central School Addition Project? Seeing nobody rising to talk about it, the article itself is hereby forwarded to the March 8th ballot as is. The next on the warrant article is Article 3, and this is the operating budget. And Article 3 says, I'm just going to read it, shall the voters of Hampstead School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the articles set forth on the budget posted with the warrant for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $31,671,796. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $31,972,403, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Hampstead School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 15, take up the issue of a revised operating budget. And it says here, the operating budget does not include appropriations proposed under any other warrant articles, and this is what the majority vote is required by the school board, by the voters, I mean, and it's recommended by the school board 4-0. I'll go back in time, I shouldn't do this, but the last article, when it's on the ballot, that needs a 3/5 majority vote, it needs a supermajority to pass, that is the bond issue. I'm sorry to skip around like that, but just want people to know that. Whereas this operating budget is just majority vote on the 8th of March. So, is there a proponent of the article? Mr. Smith, you move this forward?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Jason seconds it. And so, does anybody want to speak to the operating budget? I'm sure you do. So, who wants to be recognized for this?
That'll be-
You're hereby, Mr. Smith, you're hereby recognized to speak to the operating budget.
All right, everybody stuck with me again. So, try to go through this for everybody in detail, but again, all of this is available online for you, so if you're looking for all the detail, it is available online, every line, something new we've done this year. So if you're looking for more detail than what we have done a bottoms-up. Thanks again to Mr. Thompson and those that you see off to your right, my left, who have worked diligently on the budget, so appreciate that. We are going to be talking to the drivers and the projected enrollments. We're going to talk about budget changes by department. Again, highlights of any increases and decreases. Talk about the staffing request, any overall budget, the overall budget proposal, as well as a little bit more default on that and the default budget. So we'll go through the next line. Okay, here's our drivers of the budget, both adding to or removing from the budget for our operating budget. Salaries, again, this was previously voted for by the community members. That's increasing of $843,711. Our group insurance benefits, again, tied to our previous contracts that have been approved by the voters, is $484,807. Social Security up $18,799. Early retirement has been reduced by $96,562. Teacher retirement has been reduced by $47,501. There's other benefits for employees that's up $22,177. Tuition, again, this is for Pinkerton, is up $43,989 forecasted to be. And then we have books and info resources that is down $178,580. And then professional services has gone up $91,136. Next slide, continuing on for our drivers in the budget for 2022-2023. Transportation is up $82,464. We have the SAU object code, which is down $438,000. Software is up $52,129. Equipment is down $28,808. Rental facilities is up $20,750. Other, which is a lot of smaller things added up, for one line item for $26,512. Fund transfers, $270,000. Repair and maintenance is down $1.84 million. This is the 60s wing, so that is removed from this year's operating budget request because we paid for that in the last fiscal year, or last school year, for a total decrease of $674,487 from last year's operating budget, or it's about, if Mr. Dowd, correct me, it's about minus 2.1%, minus 2.3%?
2.09.
Yep, so just under 2.1% under what it was in the previous year is what we're bringing to the community and taxpayers. So, go to the next slide. And this is where we talk a little bit about the enrollment, Mr. Guthrie, but it does not go into the future years. But I'll speak to that a little bit. So as we can see on this, our central school looks to be forecasted up 8 students, our middle school up 4 students, and Pinkerton would go up by 2 students. We do have information on our website that shows what our out years are. Overall, in the next 4 to 5 years, we'll be up about 50 or so students, a little bit more than that in our central school. So that hopefully answers your question, Mr. Guthrie. But you know, there's a lot of information on our website with what those enrollment figures are. But we are taking care of today and the future. Again, tuition rate for 2022-23 will be $14,238 for Pinkerton. So that's where we communicated on a previous page about where tuition is going up for us. That covers those 2 students. And I think that's about it for this slide. We'll go to the next. Again, overall budget proposal is $31,671,796. Again, our current budget that we're operating in the 21 to 22 school year is $32,346,283. That proposed budget of that $31.67 million gives us that difference of $674,487, or a decrease of 2.09% year over year for the community. And that's all I'm going to present for now. Mr. Reardon, I'd like to turn this over to Superintendent Bob Thompson, if you will.
A moderator recognizes Superintendent Bob Thompson. to speak
Thank
to
you,
the
Mr. Moderator.
Budget.
As Chairman Smith had indicated, there's a tremendous amount of information on the Hampstead School District website. If you really want to take a deep dive into the numbers, I would direct you there. I would also encourage you to please reach out to myself or to Mr. Dowd if you have any specific questions about the budget. One question that we get a lot from folks is, what is new in the budget that was not asked for last year, and what is being taken out? And so what we have done is we've created a new and deleted items checklist. And what I want to do is I want to just highlight a couple of those items. So if we look at under regular education personnel, we will be adding at the Hampstead Central School a technology assistant for $58,732. This is in response to the additional devices that have been deployed to the Central School. It also is in response to growing concerns that we have as a district for cybersecurity and to ensure that we have compliance with our data governance plan. You'll notice for both the middle school and the central school, there's a decrease in teacher stipends. These are stipended positions for teacher leaders in professional development, curriculum, and mentoring. These positions aren't going away. They're being restructured, but we're also going to take advantage of grant funds so that we can take them out of the operating budget. Under student services personnel, there are some changes that we're looking to make. We have a number of paraeducator positions that are currently part-time. It is our intention to take those part-time employees and move them to a full-time status, which means that they would receive benefits. We believe that this is a matter of equity for those employees. To achieve this, we would actually offset, so there would be an $85,975 increase. That would be offset by the elimination of 6 paraeducator positions, for a total savings of $96,529. It's really important to point out that those 6 positions that are being cut currently are not filled. Our student services director, Tracy Griffinhagen, has done a tremendous job going student by student to identify what is the actual total number of hours that are required for paraeducators. And we've come to be able to calculate that we can reduce 6 paraeducator positions and still be in full compliance with our obligations under special education. This budget would increase our occupational therapist from 0.8 to 0.1. This would be to fulfill our obligations under special education and the increased need for occupational therapy for our students. We would be adding a full-time reading specialist for a cost of $89,100. That will be offset because currently we have $48,000 in our budget of reading specialist contracted services. And Tracy has identified that next year's need for students in reading is significant. So there'd be a cost savings by adding a reading specialist that is a district employee as opposed to increasing our reading contracted services. Additionally, when we look at curriculum, we would have a cost savings of $50,000 for math textbooks. We would also have $110,000 of savings at the middle school for math curriculum. We did, in the previous operating budget, we funded a curriculum enhancement in mathematics. So we've purchased all of those materials. We've purchased the books, the online resources, the training. So that doesn't need to carry forward. So that is a significant savings to the district. We would be looking to purchase some curriculum materials for social studies, as well as a research-based handwriting program for the Hampstead Central School at $3,174. We also would be looking to add a family and consumer science mobile demonstration table. That's something that you might see on one of those reality TV food cooking shows. Moving on to information technology, we'll be increasing the number of Chromebooks we have, extending Chromebooks to our first graders. We'd also be looking to purchase iPads for the library. At the middle school, there's no new items. Now, this is really important to point out. When we have items in our budget that are on a replacement cycle, so every year we replace a certain amount, those are not going to show up on this new item spreadsheet. They're just part of the regular cycle. So what we typically do is we age out Chromebooks for our 8th graders. They typically get to take those with them when they leave, and we purchase new ones for our 5th graders. You won't see that reflected on this sheet. And then additionally, the district will invest $25,000 to redesign the school district website. We've received a lot of feedback from staff and community members that now is a good time for us to have a state-of-the-art website. And then when we look at athletics, at the middle school, we would be looking to add $3,000 for transportation, potentially for a new B team, $4,000 and $4,430 for new uniforms. Really what we're looking to do is extend opportunities to students to participate in extracurricular activities. And this is a way for us to really have a placeholder. So, for example, if we had a large number of students try out for a team, rather than have to cut a large number of students, the possibility exists that we could actually add an additional team. We hate to turn kids away. And then lastly, when we look at the new and deleted items, we're looking at the needs of the building. So at HCS for $3,793, there'll be some nurse replacement equipment. There'll be $4,376 worth of furniture replacement. At the middle school, we're looking to do some paving replacement. That would be at $78,750. It's also important to note that we're, having conversations with the town, with the Board of Selectmen, to see if there's a way for us to be able to sort of pool our need to be able to get a lower price. So those are ongoing conversations that we're having. Also, the curtain that you see to my left would be replaced. We would also replace folding chairs and rack replacement here for $13,612. Again, we do a section of the roof for $54,059. And last year, we really redesigned the circulation desk at the middle school library, so that is an expense that we won't need going forward. So the total increases for our building needs is $155,508. And with that, Mr. Moderator, I would like to turn it back over to Chairman Smith.
I'd like to recognize the chairman of the school committee to talk about budget percentage trends.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. So this just gives you an overview for those members of the public who want to know where we've been with our budgets year after year. I'm not going to go through every year of these, but you can see starting in the 2011-2012 all the way through the proposed year of 22-23 where we've been year over year, and with an average of yearly increase of a 2.61%. So I think it's important for community members to see this, to see, we have done a really good job of providing the education in this town and been fiscally conservative with that 2.61 average over the last 10 years. All right. We'll look at the next slide here. This talks about the funding sources. Again, talking about our current year compared to our anticipated 22-23. This just shows you how we got to the budget of last year of operating budget of $32 million compared to this year's proposed or anticipated of $31,671,796. Again, shows you the change and what that assessed property value change would be year over year between last year's, or I should say our current year of 2022 to our anticipated 22-23 year. I don't know if there's anything you would speak to this, Mr. Dowd, but I think I pretty much covered it, so.
One more, David. Keep going.
Jeff, you?
Yep, next slide.
What?
Sorry, one more slide.
Okay, sorry.
So again, we just broke this out so everyone can see where that operating budget expenditures would be allocated to. As you would imagine, our salaries takes up about a third of that pie of $11 million. And the blue on the right, on the left in purple is the tuition that we pay for just over $9 million. On the bottom, maroon, is what our benefits are of about $6.7 million. And I won't go through the rest, but as you can see on the left, we go through salaries, benefits, expenses, tuition, fund transfers, transportation, utilities and repair, and supplies and equipment. And again, all of this is available online in this detail that gives you the high level, but you can get down to every penny of every dollar, thanks to, again, Mr. Thompson and the administration for going line by line, bottoms up budgeting this year. And then lastly, last slide that I'll speak to is the default budget. Again, should the proposed budget be defeated, the default would be $31,972,403, or about $300,000 more than the proposed operating budget. And that's all I have, Mr. Reardon.
And Jeff, I understand you want to be recognized?
Nope.
To talk
You're
about
good.
funding? No? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak to Article 3, the operating budget? It's $31 million. Okay. Laura, you're recognized to speak. Another selectman.
We love our select people.
Okay.
Fingers crossed. My name is Lori Warnock. I am a member of the Board of Selectmen here in town. I'm also the liaison to the school board. When I volunteered to be liaison to the school board, no one argued for the position. I have to say, I did not have to wrestle with anyone for that spot, which was a little bit unnerving. But I have to commend the school board for a year from hell, 2 years from hell that you've navigated through, and then to come with a budget that is significantly lower than your operating budget from last year. The renovations, which came in on time and under budget. I am so proud of your stewardship of our education process here in town. I think our students are well served. I think our taxpayers are well served. And I really hope with all the work you've put into, yet again, presenting the absolutely necessary renovations to these buildings, that this year you get the success you deserve. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to be recognized to speak to the operating budget? Seeing no one rising to talk to the operating budget, and there's no amendments, the operating budget as is hereby forwarded to the March 8th ballot, which will be here, and to get approved, it requires a majority vote. I'm going to go on to the next article, which is Article 4, Capital Reserve Fund. So who's the proponent of that article? Mr. Smith, you're going to push that article forward, move forward?
I'll motion that. Why not?
Second?
Yes.
Jason? Okay. And just to get it forward for discussion, okay?
Thank you.
Let me read the article. Shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate up to $500,000 to be placed in the school renovation, reconstruction, and capital improvement capital reserve fund established in 2006, with such amount to be transferred from June 30th, 2022, unassigned fund balance surplus in excess of $150,000 available for transfer on July 1st, 2022. Again, this is a majority vote required. The first $150,000 of surplus will be returned to the taxpayers. The next $500,000 of the surplus will be placed in the capital reserve fund. An additional surplus will be returned to the taxpayers. The funds from this article come from the 2021-22 school budget surplus, not from additional taxes. And this is recommended by the school board unanimously. How many members on the school board? 4?
We have 5 school board members.
So how can it be like 400?
We had somebody who was not at the
Okay,
meeting, so.
okay.
That's a good question, though, in case anybody was wondering why 5 members and it's only 4-0. It's only because a member was not here, so.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation.
Yes.
Does anybody else want to speak? The capital reserve fund. I wish you would, because I think this is technically hard to understand. You can explain it, Caitlin.
Yeah, so I did just want to say a couple things about this, because it is kind of a article that sometimes people don't really understand. Our capital reserve fund is for capital improvements. We built it up over the last several years, and last year, we're able to do one of our big projects on the 60s wing renovation, and that was taking some of the money, the majority of the money that we had built up in there. So when the board puts this forward, and we ask the town to approve it, it's so we can start building up that fund again for the same type of projects in the future, whether it be a roof or potentially using it towards an addition or a renovation if possible in the future. So I just wanted to talk to that quickly, because sometimes people look at this and say, well, what is this? It's additional money. And what's most important is it's not an additional money. This comes from if we have surpluses at the end of the fiscal year. The first 150 goes back to the taxpayers if we have $500,000 after that, should this article pass, that goes into the capital reserve fund. And then if we have anything additional, that goes back to the taxpayers as well.
Thank you, Caitlin. Anybody else want to speak to Article 4, the Capital Reserve Fund?
Yeah, Mr. Reardon?
I recognize Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Ms. Parnell was saying about this is, in years past, we've been able to come under our budget. I'm not sure the exact average to that, what we're typically, but I know typically it's between $600,000 and $1 million that we run under our budget. And what this allows and helps, again, is not only for those smaller activities we may need to fund, like paving, et cetera, but it does provide us a way to put a nest egg, start that nest egg up in case we need a more major addition or renovation, maybe a classroom, maybe whatever that looks like, but this allows us to do that rather than come back to the voters in future years and increasing our operating budget. We would be looking to use this first versus, again, coming and asking for additional monies in the future.
Anybody else want to speak to Article 4, the Capital Reserve Fund? Anybody? Oh, Jeff, you're here. Jeff Dowd is hereby recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Our average return to the town to reduce taxes over the past 5 years has been $928,000, so that's the average. That's helpful. Our capital reserve balance at the moment is just under $300,000. We've already done a withdrawal of $1,160,000 from that fund to pay for the repairs, renovations on the 60s. So it'll help build that balance again, as Caitlin spoke to.
Mr. Chairman, you're hereby recognized to speak. You're hereby recognized Article 2.
Yeah, that's really important. Over the last few years, and even prior to that, we were putting that money away for in that capital reserve, and that's how we were able to fund much of what we did for the 60s edition. The 60s wing to renovate that is we didn't have to go back and add more money to our operating budgets per se and ask for more money on top of what we're already paying in our taxes. We were able to use that and pay for, as Mr. Dowd said, over $1 million of that we had put away to take care of that 60s renovation. So that's a great use case and an example of why we need that and why we look for that money to be used for. So thank you, Mr. Dowd. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Mr. Reardon.
Anybody else want to speak to Article 4, Capital Reserve Fund? No one from the board, no one from the general public. Therefore, Article 4, the Capital Reserve Fund is hereby forwarded to the March 8th secret ballot in this school from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The next article is Article 5. Article 5 is Hampstead Central School Lot Line Adjustment. And the article says, shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate the sum of $17,738 for the acquisition of approximately 3.434 square feet of land abutting the Hampstead Central School, and to approve the purchase and sale agreement dated January 10th, 2022, between the district with the owners of said land in order to complete a lot line adjustment for the Hampstead School District with property located at 13 Emerson Ave, that goes on to say where it's located, for purposes of resolving an existing encroachment of vehicular traffic and utilities by the school, provided the terms and conditions of the purchase and sale agreement are met, to further authorize the school board through its chair to enter into such further agreements and sign such documents that are necessary to effectuate the transaction. This shall be a non-lapsing appropriation, and this majority vote is required, recommended by the school board unanimously. And I understand, Jeff, you want to speak to this issue?
Okay. You want?
Mr. Chairman, you recognize to speak.
Yep. This one is really, just want to state appreciation for the abutters to the Central School, who we've had a very, I'd say a really great relationship with over the years, as we have, our drop-off area is on their property. So this is, we've been working with them for a number of years, and at this point, this is why we're bringing this forward, is this allows to compensate those abutters for the use of their land and really exchange that land over to the school, so it's officially ours, and it reduces the risk for the abutters that if there was an accident that's on their property line, that they would have to take care of, so we reduce that risk, and we're doing what is really the right thing to do is, if it's land that we're using, we should be paying for it, and this is what this does. And again, appreciation to those, the abutters who we've had a really great relationship with and have been amicable to this entire warrant. So we've worked with them, Mr. Dowd and others, so we appreciate it and just want to call that out.
Anybody else want to discuss Article 5, Hampstead Central School lot line adjustment? Go ahead, Jeff.
I will thank you, Mr. Moderator. I will direct the public to our Hampstead School District's website. Under the warrant and budget information, you'll find a full page dedicated to this warrant article, so you can take a look and get a little further explanation on it. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. And I guess, is there any more discussion on Article 5, the central school lot line adjustment? Nobody from the board, nobody from the audience. Therefore, Article 5 is hereby forwarded to the secret ballot on March 8th here in the school, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Next article, Article 6, general acceptance of reports. And the article says, shall the Hampstead School District accept reports of agents, auditors, and committees as written in the 2021 annual report, majority vote required, recommended by the school board. Does anybody want to speak to this article? I see no one rising to speak, so Article 6 is hereby forwarded to the secret ballot. And now I'm going to entertain a motion to recess to the secret ballot, and I'm going to have a vote on that. And I guess the only thing in the school board, I don't know if you're going to meet after this. Do you want to make an announcement about that?
Nope, we will not be.
Okay. So I entertain a motion to recess. Someone move the recess this, Jeff Dowd moves to recess to the March 8th ballot. Is there a second? And Caitlin, second it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those objecting say nay. Hearing no objections, we hereby are adjourned.
Just a quick reminder, Mr. Reardon, that the deliberative session is on March 8th, 2022 at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. here at the middle school. Hope to see everybody here and in voting for these various warrant articles.
It's good to get a good turnout because the only time we really get a big turnout is for the presidential election. And these elections are very important.
They are. Town votes are the most important votes.